Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to India Game Changer. Today we are joined by Ashish Tandon, the founder and CEO at Indusface. Ashish, really, thank you so much for doing this today. How are you doing, by the way?
Thanks, Michael. I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on your show. I've heard a lot about your show and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Just two guys having a convo. Before we get into the main part of this conversation, actually, can I learn a little bit more about you? I want to understand your background, if you don't mind.
Sure. So, I'm a first generation entrepreneur. In some sense, I would call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I was a keen sportsman and I actually used to play cricket. Cricket, as you know, in our country is almost religion.
Yeah.
And I used to play Ranji Trophy for the state team of mine. And I was a fast bowler, reasonably good fast bowler. I could have made it to at least that's what I believe. I could have made it to the national team. But, I was a flat feet. So because of injury, I had several stress fractures and I had to let that passion of mine go. And then I was a reasonably good student. I was an engineer, did very well in studies as well. And then, I have to, in order to earn a living, I need to and I was always inclined towards being an entrepreneur, though I don't have any background of being an entrepreneur. My parents or I no legacy here, right? But it was always my passion. And hence, after that, started my journey, entrepreneurial journey, and God and life has been very kind. This is actually my fourth venture. I've built three in the past and sold all the three of them. And they were reasonably. So, and the last one was we had built SaaS-based security software to find malwares in websites. And that software or that SaaS platform, we sold it to Trend Micro, which is one of the largest enterprise security company of the world. So it's been a very satisfying journey so far.
Can I ask you this? When I was much younger, right, and when I was at Morgan Stanley and at Goldman Sachs, one of the things we used to ask for when we were hiring people, male or female, it didn't matter, was about team sport participation. We actually thought it was really important for the teamwork that they were going to do at work as well. And I'm curious if you see some sort of analogy between the sport that you did, regardless of what it was, and the business that you do and how those two things combine together. And if you don't mind me following up a little bit, did that surprise you or not?
So I'll tell you, Michael, my sporting experience and right from the diligence, the hard work, the preparation, the process, and then finally when getting into a game or a match, all of those aspects come in so very handy to me in almost every time I'm in a crunch situation. My cricketing experience helps me. I'll tell you what, team, right? The cricket is a team event. So I've always paid utmost importance and diligence in making sure that we're the right team because it's ultimately a team game. It's not an individual. You might have a spark here and there, but it's ultimately an individual. It's a team game, right? How do you keep the pack together, keep them motivated, even when the chips are down? All those things come in so very handy. Crunch moments, when we are down and our team is going to lose, how do we kind of make sure we kind of fight and give our best? And the fourth is, it's a process. It's not that. So match is the ultimate outcome of all the process you have followed in terms of bringing your skill, practicing, but the process is very important. So the outcome has to be processed, so all of these things come in very handy. And trust me, not that even engineering, right? So even engineering was always a step-by-step process. Kind of look at the end result. What is that you want to achieve? And then you kind of figure out steps to go. So all these things, honestly, combination of them have really helped me. And I'm saying this with all honesty.
Yeah. One of the things that I think about with sport, I'm just trying to come up with this as we're talking, right, is practice, obviously super important, right? Because even if there is a process, even if you know what that process is, if you don't practice that process, you're lost because there's another guy or another gal who's practiced it. And when you're right, when the chips are down and when the stress is on you, you want to have that memory, the muscle memory to do it. And the prep, almost as important, if not more important. And then the precision of just being able to get it right every single time or close is just so important in sport and in business, yeah?
Absolutely. And, I think my experience has helped me. Like, for example, when I made my debut, I made it against a team, Mumbai or a Bombay that point of time. And they had Sachin Tendulkar was their captain. And I was bowling, I was a fast bowler, he was opening batsman. He was a legend at that point of time. Now, of
Right.
course, he's much. But, it's the pressure of, you are bowling to the best batsman in the world, and that's your first ball ever in your career, right? So it's overwhelming, overpowering. But these things happen to be when I'm facing a competitor, a larger, or, I'm working on presenting in front of a large audience. All these, this pressure, managing pressure,
Yeah.
figuring out ways to overcome, I'm telling you, it has always comes in very handy.
I want to talk about the Trend Micro experience as well, right? Because you sold a company to them. And again, this reminds me of what you were just talking about. Like if it's your first time, and it's not your first, but if you're building a company and you're selling it to this other really big, well-established company, right? They have all these processes, procedures, lawyers, all this experience in M&A in place. And in comparison, right? I talk in relative terms. You're just a guy with a thing in a way, right? In relative terms, not in reality, but you know what I mean. What's it like in that process as well, right? Because that's hard to prep for.
So again, no different. So you're right. Trend Micro, very large company. They are the best lawyers in the world, the best tax consultants, they're best people. They're the best of the breed. And here is a company out of India which is selling to them, and just the process and the ups and downs. And when you go through a legal process or when a diligence is happening, there are a few things which you feel are not right, or should be done in a different way, etc. And then again, the end result was to get the transaction done and to get the money in our banks, right? And then when there are hiccups coming
Yeah.
in terms of, the lawyer comes and say, by the way, I mean, I remember that was the first time I started even looking at clauses like indemnity and escrow and all. I mean, I would never look at that agreement, but then I realized how important those were, right? And
Indemnity,
then
yeah. And escrow for sure.
infringement of IP, how the code is written. I mean, taught me a lot, but again, phenomenally stressful, right? Especially
Yeah.
when it's the first time, you have no idea what's going on. But again, same experience, it's an experience which you have gone through. So you have stress and you say, in such situation, what do you need to do? You need to keep your calm, hold yourself up, and the process. I mean, if you're honest and you have done things right, and if something has happened or is not right because of doing a thing in a certain way, and getting that answer for yourself that you did the right thing in that context. Of course, it's not meeting their criteria, but then you need to honestly mention that to them or transfer to them that this is what we had done, and maybe we did it not in the way you would have expected.
Right.
And all these things, trust me, actually helped me overcome the questions. And because we were honest, or I was honest,
Yeah.
sports also teaches you sportsmanship and honesty and integrity, right? And so that always helped me. That I would be honest, tell them exactly what's happening, and they would appreciate it, and they would find answers to my challenges and get it done.
Yeah, I love it. Look, I have this whole concept that no one succeeds alone, right? And even though like Steve Jobs was the face of the iPhone, there are hundreds and thousands of people out there working to build that. And I think it's true at every company, but also for every team. And we can give hundreds of examples of this, right? What I want to ask you though is this idea of being an accidental entrepreneur, because I love this term, right? Like I am maybe even more of an accidental entrepreneur than you are. And I'll tell you why, because for 25 years, I worked for other people. And to be honest, I thought a couple of times about, hey, maybe I should start this company or that company, but had no idea and didn't understand like the infrastructure around starting up. And it didn't seem to be an avenue for it. But I'm curious for you, right? Because if you started building companies, if this is your fourth, you must have started building companies, what, 15, 20 years ago? Like I can't imagine when. It was a while ago, no?
1999, so it's 23 years.
Yes, it's a long time ago, right? But back then, there was no startup ecosystem in India. And in a way, there was no startup ecosystem anywhere, really, except maybe Silicon Valley. So why do you think you were the guy that said, I want to build my own thing as opposed to just go work for a big company? Even back then.
So I used to play cricket. I was a reasonably good student. I was doing engineering, right? And like most of the guys of my age and my friends were preparing to go to the US because that was like supposed to be like the dreamland, and go there, do an MBA and work there and stuff like that. I had always had an option. And incidentally, even my wife, she was a brilliant student. She actually had an admission waiting for in Johns Hopkins there.
Wow.
And I went to her and said, somehow I think that I have this entrepreneurial thing in me and I want to do something of my own. I know I have no experience, but I think I can do it and I want to do it. And will you support me? Let's see if we can do it for a couple of years. If you don't, then of course we both will do and do whatever everybody else does. It just came from within. You're right. I've always seen myself as an entrepreneur. And
Yeah.
I'm being honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Then I just followed my passion and I got support from family. And then, as I said, God has been extremely kind. And I'm a firm believer you have to put the hard work, you have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
have the processes, you have to do all those things right. You also need the Almighty with you. That factor also plays a role for sure.
Do you feel like, look, there's a massive difference if we just talk about when Indusface was formed and when your first company started in 1999, you said? 1998,
And then
1999. Yeah. The whole ecosystem has changed, but starting is still hard, right? It's just the hardness has moved to different places. But when you look at the startup ecosystem in India, like how does it look to you today? Do you know what I mean? Like when you look around, because when you first started, there was nothing there, but now there's a whole bunch of stuff there, but now there are more people doing it as well. Like how does it look to you today? How would you characterize it from your perspective?
I feel that the entrepreneurial spirit was always there in India. I think that spirit was always there.
Okay.
It has become now more pronounced. And I think there are a few reasons. One is there is a recognition that there is talent.
Yeah.
And the talent is now getting backed with capital. And I think the other important factor which is helping us is, India itself, as an economy or as a country, but the political, at least the leadership, there's some stability.
Yep.
Look around, right? There's so much instability anywhere in the world. I mean, from a political angle, it's quite stable. It is a democracy. So, the decision making is much more balanced. And then I think another thing which has really helped us is look at the leadership across the world, and some of the best companies are run by Indians, right? And they always have roots back in India.
Yeah.
So they have also been getting back and saying, guys, why don't you look at this idea? Why don't you do this? So I think overall, it has just helped the ecosystem a lot. And I firmly believe that the next 15 to 20 years belong to India, and this is the place to be in. And we have the best talent and build the software service, not only to service India, but the world.
Do you feel like it's changed though? In the sense that, like you said, when you were younger, right, your wife got that entrance into Johns Hopkins. A lot of your peers were saying, I graduated from here and I'm going to go work in California. I'm going to go work in Boston or Chicago. And even though you have like Microsoft and Google and all these big American global tech companies run by Indians, you feel now that a lot of guys and gals that were in the same position that you were in are just looking around going, I'm staying here instead because the opportunity is just so large.
Absolutely. It's a huge, in my case, so it's been 19 years, 4 ventures, 3 ventures which I've built and sold were bootstrapped. The number one thing, I never got funding. I mean, there was no ecosystem there. So I used to put my house on, I put my house on mortgage and got money, and I've got from whatever money I used to get from my customers, I used to put it back. So running the company very prudently. I didn't have this luxury of
Venture
investors
capital.
putting money. This was non-existent. That is actually helped now. So
Yeah.
now with the ecosystem there, it is helping. But in my case, with all the constraints you talked about, the constraint of capital is a very big thing, in a startup, because you are putting in all your savings and whatever little savings you have. In my case, I did not have the luxury that I will make money after 5 years. Right? In my case, I have to make money. If I don't make money, I'm shutting down because I didn't have an avenue to get money from investors.
Plus, you also made this, what's the right word, implied promise to your family and to your wife going, I need to succeed at this. If we don't succeed, we have other plans, but I need to succeed here. And I can't raise money from some venture capitalists, so I got to figure out a way to make this work. It's like more pressure. But here's the other thing. Once you succeed, and you can define that any way you want, right? On the first one, what's the incentive to go do the second one and the third one? Because they're still hard, right? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't get easier, really.
So I think each one of my exits were a building block for the next one.
Go ahead.
So the first one I exited, it was an ISP business. We had done a joint venture. I sold it to the joint venture partner back. So that gave us the motivation there was to get some more capital, personal capital, right? To kind of, it wasn't very sizable. The next one was that we built a SaaS software and sold it to a large enterprise company like Trend Micro. That gave us a lot more capital, but the reason for that exit was twofold. One, of course, we wanted capital, but the second thing was, India was not known as a product company or a product destination. It was more known as a IT-enabled services, back office operations, or software development. It was very important, and that to cybersecurity, right? So it was very important for us. So for me, it was important, one, to capital. Second, also establish ourselves that we can build a world-class product, cybersecurity product out of India and sell it to the best in the world. So which we have the capability. I think that was very important. And then leveraging that, I wanted to build the current Indusface. At Indusface now, the motivation is not just money or capital. Now the money is how do we scale this up and make it a world-class organized or a world-scale organization. I think those are the things which drive me. So now currently at Indusface, the motivation is how do we scale it up? How do we make it world-class, have presence across the world, and make it a company of world standard.
Do you feel like you've been part of this transition? Because you're right? 20 years ago, whether it was outsourcing or, call centers and stuff like that, India was known as a place of highly educated people, but not a place that developed products. But now that's like upside down, right? Where people look at India and just think, oh my God, I can't believe the products that they're developing there. How can we bring them here, right? And there's this idea of like building in India for India, building in India for the rest of the world. You can test some stuff there that you may not be able to test in the rest of the world. There's a lot, like, there's so much going on. Like, do you feel like you were part of that transition? Do you feel like you helped develop that as well, you and your peers, yeah?
I think in the cybersecurity space, with all humility and humbleness, I would definitely say that, we have been able to, at least I would believe that we have been able to motivate and inspire a few youngsters to
Yep.
kind of, looking at us, they realize that, you can build a cybersecurity software company out of India, make it world class, become global. I believe definitely in some way we have helped, or our team or our company has helped influence. And there are quite a few of them as well. So, but yeah, in my little way, I would say that, or I would like to believe that we have helped inspire a few more.
What exactly does Indusface do?
So we have a platform. It's a SaaS-based platform built on the cloud. The objective of the platform is to protect our customers' digital assets. And what I call digital assets are assets which they use to interact with their customers or partners or employees. And these digital assets which are internet facing. So, for example, websites, mobile apps, these are the mechanisms people or customers use now to digitally transact or interact with their ecosystem.
Yep.
And if there are 7 billion people having access to the internet, and of these 7 billion people, if we cannot assume that all of them are good guys and they are very nice people. There are adversaries who would like to take advantage of this openness of the internet and try to exploit these digital assets. So what we as a company do is we help our customers make sure that their digital assets are continuously kept protected against these adversaries.
Right.
And the way we have done is our platform, and we do three things. One, we continuously keep looking at our customers' digital assets. So because the digital assets are software, built on a software platform, we make sure that we continuously keep scanning these assets or the software and find out if there are any weaknesses or vulnerabilities which got added or a new vulnerability got introduced. As soon as we find them, we on a real-time basis protect them or virtually patch them so that no adversary can take advantage. Even if there is a vulnerability, these adversaries don't take advantage of these open vulnerabilities. And open vulnerabilities means they can get credit card numbers, they can get passwords, whatever, right? So we would kind of make sure that. The other aspect which we look at is what we've realized is because of with resources in cloud, what they can do is, for example, you have a website and it can maybe handle at the maximum 10,000 concurrent users at a time, right?
Right.
Now imagine if your same website by an adversary by hiring at a cost of about $20, he can hire hundreds of machines across the world and have an attack on your site where instead of 10,000 requests, you will be encountering 100,000 or 150,000 requests at a time, which your server cannot handle. What it means is your site or your entire server crashes. Hence, your customers can no longer transact with you. In our terms, it's called DDoS attack or denial of service, right? So our platform has an intelligence mechanism which is based back on big data and behavioral learning mechanism where we continuously keep looking out if there are certain kind of attacks which are initiated and based on our intelligence and based on various correlations, we would mitigate those ones so that the customer's site doesn't go down or basically the business availability doesn't go down.
Right.
And the third important thing which we do is that what we realize is that while security is important, the end user experience is very important as well. For example, if you go to a site and it takes a lot of time to load, right? Or the page load takes time, you are like frustrated, you're not very happy with the experience, right? So what we have done is that we've also added a CDN, or it's called Content Delivery Network, where it caches static content. The end customer experience becomes much faster. For example, your page load time will take us taking 2-3 milliseconds to take it maybe 1 minute. So it improves that. So our approach is we continuously keep finding and mitigating the risks which a hacker can exploit and ask for ransom, for example, take credit card numbers, etc. Make sure that the business availability is there by making sure that we are, keeping these adversaries out by and not letting our customers be victims of DDoS attack,
Right.
and accelerating so that the end user experience. These are the things we fundamentally do and what we feel the customers really want.
The CDN idea is actually a really good idea, right? Because like you said, if I go to a website and it's protected, but it takes me literally 10 seconds, I may go somewhere else. If it normally takes me 1 second, right? So it's like having another lock on the door. It's like, oh, I need another key for this thing. It's really annoying. I didn't know you were doing this actually. By building a CDN around it, it just means that all of your nodes that have all the stuff that's already cached means it's always super fast. And then on the back end, you're doing the security stuff. So on the front end, on the CDN stuff where all the content is delivered, it really means that the users are never exposed to, even if the site goes down, right? Because you could DDoS the site, but since it's cached somewhere else, I still have access to it while Indusface is going, uh-oh, automatically, yeah? And fixing it and patching it in real time, which is, I guess, what you said, which means that the customer never knows, the end user never knows or should never know that that's happened.
So there's a lot of uniqueness. And, I'll tell you, Michael, our philosophy of the company has always been, we try to solve our customers' problems. We are here to make sure that they're. So another very interesting thing happened, or we have introduced, which we had introduced and thought through right from the inception was another thing which we're very conscious about it now. You have to imagine now, before us, the customer's traffic was going directly to the customer's website.
Yep.
Or end users are going to the website. Now it goes through us.
Yep.
Now, if something happens to us, or if there is some kind of a issue or a bug or whatever in my software, it goes down, their users and the customer will stop talking, right? Because to me now their traffic. We had built a fail-open mechanism from the first day of our product, where even if something happens to my software, automatically the customer's traffic goes directly to there is no disruption. And interestingly, one of our competitors, just about a month and a half back, it's a global competitor, their entire software went down.
Yeah,
and
it did,
thousands of their customers or websites which were hosted or which were protected
all went down
by them also went down with them unless they fixed the entire problem. So we went and told our customers that, even if that had happened to us, your business would not have, yes, security would have got, because our software is not there, but your business continued to have been this. Again, I don't take credit for this. I remember when I had gone to sell it to a bank, this is one of my CISO friends or CIO friends in the bank told me, Ashish, I will use your software, but I need this fail-upon mechanism because of you, my business cannot be done, right? And today it is a differentiator.
So it brings up so many interesting questions. But have you seen a change in like senior management's opinion of whether this type of protection is necessary? Do you know what I mean? Like, when did Indusface start? When did you launch?
So actually in 2013.
Right. So that's a while ago, right? 8 years ago or 9 years ago. When you first launched, like, did you find that the tenor of the conversations have changed over time? Whereas when you went in 13, 14, and 15, like, hey, you might need this, they'll be like, we'll get to it. Whereas today, like, the phone is ringing as opposed to you making outgoing calls, if you know what I mean? Like, do people understand in the C-suite just how dangerous this is?
So there are two things which have changed. One, it's a boardroom C-suite discussion. And because nowadays if you pick up a newspaper or if you're using digital content to look at news, something or the other has crashed or something has been hacked. Here ransomware, this is happening, that is happening. So the board and the C-suite's questions are, how are we protected? So I think about 3-4 years back, this kind of a consciousness had become very prevalent. And this was a board, guys, what are you doing to make sure that we are not in the news tomorrow? What are your... So that was 3-4 years back. In the last year and a half, I've started seeing it has evolved. So now the board is saying, okay, great, you guys are doing this and you all came to, and we told you we have to do this. And you all made, and we gave you unlimited budget to do whatever it takes so that we don't become headlines. Now, thank you very much. But now you tell me what's your return of investment. So you bought the security stuff. Tell us what are you really getting out of it? Or you just made an investment. It's quite a coincidence that last week I was presenting to the CIO of a very large group in India. And the way I like to present, and we were doing a review of the entire project and a lot of stuff. And it's a big customer of mine. So we do it once in a year. And so what I presented to him was just 3 things. I said, Mr. CIO, these are the number of digital assets we are protecting for you. These are the vulnerabilities or open vulnerabilities that are already existing. we have virtually patched it for you. And by the way, these many attacks happened on your open vulnerabilities. Right. So if we were not there, or if we had not protected you and the numbers wide, I can give you a number from an overall across our customers' perspective. In the last 1 month, there was about 10,000 plus open vulnerabilities in our customers. We are protecting all of them. And we found out that there were almost about 30 million attacks which happened on these open vulnerabilities. Right. So imagine if you were not there. So that was the ROI. So he said, this is presented the same thing to him and said, by the way, you have these many sites, these many open vulnerabilities, these are the blocks we did, and these many attacks blocks. He's like, I love it, Ashish, because my board is not interested in technology, SQL, cross-site, whatever. He's asking about, you invented this, what is that we got? And this is like a clear ROI for him, right? The second thing I told him is, by the way, these many DDoS and bot attacks happened from you and we blocked them. If we had not, your business would have gone down and you would have suffered one, business loss. Second is you have to work hard to get the business up and running, right? I can see that is the changing trend now. So the board 3 years back was asking about, we're hearing a lot, please implement stuff, take this budget. Now they're coming and saying, guys, we gave you all the budget. Now tell us what is exactly that you're doing, because they have also evolved. So that's the change I would say, which I am seeing lately.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a large monetary risk, but there's also a large reputational risk as well, right? Because if they're providing other services to people that are based on their software being up and running and it goes down, it's hugely problematic, right? Because, it's like my grandfather told me, it takes a lifetime to build a reputation and just like a picosecond to lose it. And once you're not responsible, then you're just irresponsible and you can't get it back. It's just super duper hard, yeah?
Absolutely. I think, and different companies have different motivations. For example, you said those companies who are providing services and people are banking on them, like SaaS is a very good example.
Yeah.
Like a SaaS, basically, it's a platform which is helping other customers provide services. Now, you might be a unicorn, but what if you are hacked and, and people figure out that their information because of you is going somewhere else, those customers stop trusting you. So it can actually have a huge, the other example would be as a large business which is publicly traded and, you are completely attacked and there's ransom attack and it's in the news, stock is going to go tumbling down. So the board has a much more,
exactly.
It has repercussions. The good news is that the board is conscious. There is enough emphasis put on this topic, but now the discussion has gone a step further now and said, while we are investing, please also show us, are we getting a return of investment or is just that we are making money, right? So essentially they're asking, are you also implementing and getting an advantage, or was it just that you wanted to, just because we said, and you'll say, I bought 10 tools, are these tools really working?
Right.
And are you getting advantage? So I think those are the questions they've started asking. So it's an evolution, right? So earlier was put something in place, and now it's like, okay, you put this, are they working, and what is the benefit you're getting?
Do you feel like, because I think a lot of people out there don't understand what a CDN business does and the access it gives to information and to data, right? Like it's a really powerful business. In a way, a lot of the CDN companies, I'm not suggesting this, right? But a lot of these CDN companies have very low fees to use them because they get all this other information and they can then consolidate, aggregate, and analyze and then sell back to the companies that are using their CDN to create an even bigger business. Do you look at other business opportunities through the protection that you're giving and the CDN service that you're giving that can lead to other things as well?
Absolutely. I think the biggest advantage we are getting from all the, being spread out across the world. So we have geographically spread business.
Yep.
Hence, we have actors who are across the world. Second, bad actors, and we look at all that data. We have different verticals. We have healthcare, we have insurance, we have finance, we have power companies, and the motivations are different and attack vectors are different used by them. So we get so much of data. So we come up with a quarterly information application data report. And there's so much we give it vertical wise, and how is the healthcare getting affected, or how is the banking. What are we seeing in the banking? Are there different attacks? Are we seeing what has been like, for example, one of the findings in our last report was that we started seeing that there are a lot more attacks happening from Ukraine and Russia. And we're seeing it happening to our customers. That's what the finding we had. Sometime back, we used to see things from China. So all these geopolitical issues, a lot of information comes in. And what we are really doing is we use it from two perspectives. One, we kind of use that information to strengthen our protection mechanism, and that protection mechanism is learning from various other customers and giving it to all customers. So the beneficiary are all customers, because backend we implement the same thing. And the second thing is we are using this information to share it with our customers. So they also like to look at it. They are very keen to what is happening in the healthcare industry. We are there. What are others doing? Are we different? How are we doing? How are we, compared to maybe a developed geographies like Europe and US or other developing countries, stuff like that. So I think whether we want to add more, whether we're using that to add more features and services, of course we are. But these are the two benefits I see of information we get.
Got it. And the last,
mind you, we don't look at any customer data.
No. I don't mean to suggest
all
that.
we look at is the bad data or the bad or the attacks. So for us, we only look at the attacks.
Yeah, no, I understand completely. The last thing I'll ask you before I let you go. I mean, I feel like I could keep going on and on because it's so interesting for me.
Oh, this is a great conversation. I love it.
I love it too. Do you feel like you've been at this for 20 something years now, right? And again, you've been an entrepreneur your whole life, essentially, after being a sportsman, right? Do you feel, I don't know if the word responsibility is the right word, but just some kind of like the necessity to mentor and to give back to people that maybe a generation behind you, just show them like, don't focus on this, focus on that in life and in business, if that makes sense, right? Because it's hard to separate the two at some level.
Absolutely, Michael. And because I've gone through so many different stages and even different environment. I mean, it was like, as I said, I had no capital available. Now things that I do spend time with startups, and I'm always open. Even in the security space, I have a few 4, 5, 6 friends or guys who are aspiring to be. They reach out to me and I tell them, talk to them. I do spend a lot of time, and I think my effort there is always been there to understand and also guide them. Yeah. And most of the times I found is that most of the startups are driven by passion or small little aspect or saying, I'm going to solve this. And they are so very over consumed with that idea. And when you ask them a larger question, what is your addressable market? How are you going to get there? What is the capital you think you'll be requiring? How is your team looking like? And I am asking them only very basic 5, 6 questions. And it kind of helps them, like you are asking, like basic questions, but it kind of opens them up and they start thinking about it. And like, if you don't do this, what does your competition look like? What is different about you? And why would people buy you? Stuff like that. I'll give you an example. I gave a very simple objective to one of the guys who reached out and I said, the day you get 5 paying customers, no matter how you get it, you think that your product is acceptable because nobody is going to pay you unless they see the value. And I said, that's the best way to figure things out. And it's interesting that I came out last week over a dinner and he's like, hey, you know what? I've still got just 3. And I'm still waiting for the 5, but at least I've got 3, right? So I plan to increase the amount of time. Of course, I'm currently very consumed with our business. The business is on a growth trajectory. I need to get things done. And now having invested, I have a growth equity investor in Tata. They're also kind of looking at how do we make it big. I have a lot of responsibility and takes a lot of my time. But at some point of time, I think after this gig, as and when I get an exit or make an exit from the business or hand over to somebody else, I do intend to spend majority of my time in guiding young entrepreneurs because I feel that they could do well with the guidance because, I think that's an area where I feel most of the guys are just stuck on their idea and they think that it is the best thing. And anyway, so I would definitely want to do that. And it comes again straight from my heart, very passionate about it. And hopefully I'll spend more time there.
Okay, that's the perfect way to end. Ashish Tandon, the founder and the CEO at Indusface. That was awesome. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Michael. I think, as I said, I've done a few such conversations, not to flatter you, but this was one of the best.
Thank you very much.